The views and opinions expressed by the following program are those of the host, guests, and callers and are not necessarily those of this station or Webster Rock Hill Ministries, its management, or other hosts or underwriting sponsors. Programs presented by KWRH-LP are for educational and entertainment purposes only.
We have a very important guest on the phone. Amelia Bond, who's the Chief Executive Officer of St. Louis Community Foundation, is with us, and she has a very great background in the finance world and being Executive Vice President of George K. Baum. She was Managing Director and Head of Public Finance and Managing Director at Wachovia, a Wells Fargo company, Senior Vice President and Director of Public Finance at A.G. Edwards & Son. And I could go on and on, Amelia, but what you are doing here in the St. Louis area with the St. Louis Community Foundation is really, really important. So thank you for being on the air with us today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Tell our listeners, because some may not be familiar, Amelia, with the St. Louis Community Foundation, what your mission is, and then we're going to get into what you've been doing actually the last 4 weeks that have been really vital for the area.
Oh, so the St. Louis Community Foundation is actually, believe it or not, it's a 100-year-old institution here, and there are 1,100 worldwide like us, but it is a charitable foundation that's comprised of funds, and those funds are put together by companies, by individual donors, by families, and for charitable purposes. And so we have about 750 funds here at the St. Louis Community Foundation. Some are for people who are left their money to carry out their charitable work beyond their lifetime. So think of us like a trustee bank where we're carrying out their charitable intent. And then we have a lot of living donors, and we help them be charitable in our community. So, for example, we have assets of about $500 million. And last year alone, we had $100 million in grant making that went out of the foundation and into the community. And that was about 6,000 grants were made by the foundation last year. So it is. It's a lot of volume. It's very high touch with our living donors, and then we carry out into forever the work of donors that have been, built funds here at the foundation as much as over 100 years ago.
And you will effectively help areas such as education, healthcare, the environment, the arts, jobs, skills, neighborhood revitalization, equity kinds of things. I was reading in your materials. Yeah, it's $250 million distributed to local nonprofits by donors over the last 5 years. That's an incredible amount of money. I know that the region has always been very benevolent, and they really give a lot to the community to help the community succeed in areas, and it's really demonstrated by a lot of what you just said. And looking that it's the oldest fund, I was looking back at some history things that Edward Burdell, who founded the oldest fund.
Well, he was one of the oldest funds, exactly.
So it really focuses that St. Louis had this dynamic interest in helping other people way back in the day.
Yeah, we were actually as I said, there are 1,100 community foundations across the country. Today, the largest is Silicon Valley. No surprise. I think there are over $10 billion in assets. But we were actually the second oldest community foundation. The first one was founded in Cleveland, and the estate attorney that founded that foundation did work here in St. Louis. As you know, back in the early 1900s, we were the gateway to the West and a strong banking community. And so it was the start of this charitable bank that has its roots in promoting philanthropy in our region.
Now, since March the 24th, folks, you have to understand this, $1.61 million has gone out through two funds, the COVID-19 Regional Response Fund and the Gateway Resilience Fund. And, Amelia, if you could kind of talk about those two separately, and then we'll talk about the impact that those have done. Tell us a little bit about the COVID-19 Regional Response Fund.
Well, that fund was, we started it the week of, Friday the 13th. And it was a concept that I had seen done. I knew it was coming from Seattle, the Seattle region. And the idea is to say, how do we bring people together, and how do we make collective? We know there's not going to be enough funding to do all that's going to be needed during this pandemic crisis. And so how do we engage our whole community to come together at this time and support and prioritize the needs? So we created the COVID-19 Regional Response Fund here at the St. Louis Community Foundation only as we became the quarterback. We pulled about a dozen different foundations together who immediately were so incredible. They jumped on board. We seeded the fund with $100,000, and others quickly came in. And since March 13th, we now have probably close to 35 to 40 people who have organizations, companies, individuals, families who have become part of what we're calling a coalition to say, let's stand up St. Louis and prioritize how we're going to make grants into the community for those most in need. To do that grant making, we created an advisory council, and that council is comprised of people who are boots on the ground who know the areas that are being impacted: education, the elderly, the labor, to many different groups. And so we've been meeting that council once to twice a week. I think they've convened 4 times since the 13th of March, and they actually make the recommendations of what are the biggest needs and priorities. And so, yes, as you said, out of the COVID Regional Response Fund to date, we've raised, we're in excess of about $2 million I'm trying to think here. Yeah, about $2 to $3 million has been raised, and wow. Actually now about $1 million out of that fund has gone out to 34 nonprofits. And actually today we're just announcing that we are going to have a competitive grant-making process, so we're opening it up. So that as long as funding is there, we will continue to roll money out of that fund and have that advisory council meet.
You know, one of the things that stood out to me about this was that this was designed for those groups who are really going to struggle during this time. And, you know, I'm going to list some of these folks so you can hear. For aging-wise, you've got St. Louis Area Agency on Aging for nutrition, transportation, and other services, Cardinal River Senior Services, basic needs, mental health, Catholic Charities, who coordinate agencies, Metro Trans Umbrella Group, for food toiletries, social isolation, connections to success, people with job loss, transportation, you know, child care, United for Children, nutrition and child care for emergency and essential personnel, disability, those Paraquat, emotional support, you know, the St. Louis Area Food Bank, mental and behavioral health services. What a great thing, because these are the groups that are often, I would say, unseen in the regular world when things aren't, you know, when things are going fine. But man, when you've got something going on like this, they can be totally forgotten and pushed to like the back of the corner. And you guys really stepped up.
Exactly. Well, you know, at a time like this, you know, unprecedented crisis, you know, we're asking these organizations to not only do what they did every day before the crisis, but now step up and build capacity to do more work. And so getting immediate funding is so critical. And so that's the goal of this fund, is to really encourage giving in a collective and collaborative way. And we're just seeing so many are stepping in, you know, companies, Ameren, Schnucks, Wells Fargo, Emerson, to Purina, to mid-sized businesses, to we have just this week a family, Knight Family, just announced a significant gift to the fund, which we hope will draw other families to give to the fund. And these are often families that don't want to be public, but they recognize that this is a time where we need to encourage each other to give. Those nonprofits are the boots on the ground doing the really hard work, but they have the ability to have tremendous impact. And so, you know, they have broad reach, they have a track record, and they can also serve a number of, we're looking for how can we have as broad a significant impact. So those were some of the criteria we used in making those decisions for grants.
This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston of St. Louis in Tune. We're talking to Amelia Bond, who is the Chief Executive Officer of St. Louis Community Foundation. And Amelia, the Gateway Resilience Fund, $1.61 million granted to date. And talk about that, because that focuses a lot on the downtown businesses and community area. Speak to that for a little bit.
Yeah, so that fund, the Gateway Resilience Fund, began actually, we had an anonymous donor who has a particular interest in the workers that were initially first impacted, being bar and restaurant waitresses, servers, dishwashers, the people that depend on tips, and small businesses. So many of our small businesses are in our neighborhoods throughout the region, and how do we support them? So that fund was created, and we opened it up to the public quickly, recognizing we wanted to just get some cash in the hands of people who work in those sectors. And so we offered a $500 cash award, a very simple application, as you can imagine, and it's just hard to watch, is that the volume of those applications has been tremendous. And to date, the fund has raised about $1.5 million. We actually have granted away that 1.6, by the way, was the total that was given of the two funds.
Gotcha.
So about a little over about half of it. And today, $1 million has gone out of the Gateway Resilience Fund. We've raised about $1.3 million to $1.5 million. We do have, for example, we have actually a donor, an anonymous donor yesterday just announced a matching grant, a dollar-for-dollar matching grant for the Resilience Fund of $100,000. So between now and over the next 60 days, which I'm going to assume we're going to pretty easily raise another $100,000, that donor will match that $100,000. So that's the type of thing that's going on. There's a lot of energy, and we're just working very hard here at the foundation to get grants out the door. I think over 1,000 individual grants of $500 have gone out to people just in checks. And as there's funds available, we're going to keep those grants coming. And this, unfortunately, we do know there won't be enough for everybody.
Now, how can people, two things here. I mean, how can people, number one, give to this particular resilience fund? What should they do?
Well, both funds. We look for donations to either the COVID Regional Response Fund or the Gateway Resilience Fund. You can go to stlgives.org, and you'll see a big, bold, red banner that click on that, and it can take you to the two funds and gives a good description, and you can give online, and also you can call the foundation or send checks to the foundation as well.
Now, you have an artist relief fund also, correct?
Yep, we do. Under the sort of the Gateway Resilience Fund became sort of the big umbrella, and under that, several funds have sort of what I'll call sub-funds have opened. One is the Regional Arts Commission. That commission authorized $100,000 specifically for artists, and to date, that fund is funded, and applications are being received, and the Regional Arts Commission is working diligently to they have criteria in place for who qualifies for that fund, and then the St. Louis Community Foundation is administering that fund.
Wow, that's incredible what you're doing with that. Mark, did you have a question you wanted to ask Amelia? I'm sorry.
So many. I'm just thank you for what you're doing, and I know you don't expect anyone to thank you for this because you see the need and you're certainly going after it, and we just appreciate it. I know you've done some work with Gives STL as well, and you just you have a wonderful heart. Thank you. I don't know what
St. Louis has a wonderful heart, and it's so many people jumping on board and finding unique ways to give, and I mean we've been just floored by the response of businesses that are dedicating a percentage of their, $2 out of a cup of coffee is being fundraised to go into the Resilience Fund. There was a line weekend before last of Mission Taco was giving for free tacos and taking contributions for the Resilience Fund, and there was a line of 50 cars. I mean, it's been an unbelievable, wonderful, a bright story in a very tough period of time.
It is a challenging time, and the Resilience Fund is a wonderful vehicle, I think, to help people, and it's going to continue even after we start to get back to work, I would say, wouldn't you? I mean, folks are still going to need to ramp up, get back to work. These hourly employees are going to need some money. I know you're helping folks with their rent payments and things like that, and there's going to be some residual, I guess, after we start to get back.
There's no question. I think our main hope with the Resilience Fund is that it provided some initial cash to the best extent possible. We know we're barely going to scratch the surface with this fund, but if we can help one person, and we've helped 1,000, but we wish we could do more. But, the federal government, I think the money will start to flow eventually, but it takes time. And so we were able to be very responsive very quickly. We do believe that the COVID-19 Regional Response Fund will actually become a recovery fund at some point and pivot towards, for example, we do know that there are going to be healthcare workers that need, mental health services are likely to be an area that we're going to see great need as we recover from these events. So I think that particularly that fund will remain in existence for a while beyond just this, initial response crisis.
Right.
If you ever wondered what the impact was, folks out there, of money that is donated in our area, or whether you have donated money to the St. Louis Community Foundation and wonder how the impact is, they have a page describing some of the impact, and sometimes you see it for yourself. If you were able to get out and deliver some things and be a part of some groups that actually have some hands-on, they're right on the front lines of doing things, you see the impact. But many times you don't. You can go to their website and see that. But if I want to echo again, stlgives.org, stlgives.org, or if you go to their Facebook page, it is the St. Louis Community Foundation, and they are actually located at Oak Knoll and are serving our community in a great way right now, have been doing that for a long time, but are really stepping up to the plate. Amelia, any last words that you want to give to us about what you guys are doing, encouragement for folks if they don't know what to do with some extra money that they have laying around? What should they do?
Well, join our coalition. It is a collective, collaborative effort. We're just providing the platform for us to all do the work together. And so we do encourage people to give, because we're just going to keep at it. As there's money in the fund, we'll keep rolling it. Both funds will keep rolling that money through and out the door as quickly as possible. And stay safe, stay well, and stay 6 feet apart.
And folks, Invest for Tomorrow has a positive impact today. That's from their website. Invest in the future of St. Louis, an important thing. Yeah. Amelia Bond, CEO of St. Louis Community Foundation, thank you very much for being on the show today. We appreciate it. And stay healthy and stay well, and continued thank you for what you're doing. It's important.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for letting us share the story.
You bet. Take care.
You too. Bye.